This is Phantom Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air with Rob Bach, and you're from Spinney Media. You're going to help us talk about how artists can actually do hardware. I mean, actually get their physical media out in the world. You help artists sell more albums, and we'll get into the depth of that. But welcome to the Phantom Electric Ghost podcast. How are you doing today?
Thanks very much. I'm doing well. It is a maybe stereotypically gray day here in Portland, Oregon. We had some nice weather last week, but back to standard, rain and gray skies here.
Well, that's well, in New Hampshire, we're doing pretty good today, but sometimes we last week it was all rainy, so we can understand that. Before we get to the heart of your story, anybody I talked to on a podcast, I asked them a couple questions, like what motivates you and why do you do what you do?
Yeah, for me, it's love of music. I was raised on it. My dad's a composer and pianist. We all took lessons. I took records out of the library to listen to them, fell in love with the Beatles. It's just been the backbeat to my entire life. So when I first went to work, when I turned 18 and could work at the local record store, I did. And I've been in the music industry most of the time since. Been a mobile DJ. It's just everything to me. It's what I listen to probably when I wake up and when I go to bed.
It's interesting because we live in an age of kind of like the tech bro age. And I've talked to some guys, and I wear a tech hat where, with AI and all these things, people are saying, well, we can replace musicians. There seems to be as like, oh, music is a commodity rather than an art. And I when I talk to anybody that's still playing, because I've been playing since I was 17, I'm 57. You don't always play to make money. You play because you love the instrument. Like you love piano, or you love your bass, or you love the violin, whatever you love your voice. That like the idea that humans will always create art is kind of in question with some people.
Yeah, there's always something new though. There's this idea, whether it's in writing that there are only so many plots or in music that we've found everything. Someone always comes along and surprises us, either blending 2 or 3 different styles together, creating some fantastic lyrics, just doing something different. And also, I go back and I love classic jazz, blues, bluegrass.
Everything.
There's just so much out there. I think the struggle these days is to get yourself heard because there's so many ways to get your music out there now.
With oversaturation.
Yeah, oversaturation, the whole idea of a commodity. I mean, if you read books about Spotify, for example, from Liz Pelly, kind of talking about really the commodification of music, and it's just background, and people are just listening to it, when they're doing other things. There's a piece of that, but I know a lot more people, particularly young people, who are setting their smartphones aside, getting flip phones like my youngest, and buying records and CDs and listening to friends.
Well, it's kind of like I'm a child of the 70s, but I was like a totally enamored with the 60s, because it was like period. It was not too far away, but it was like, wow, the Beatles, Hendrix, and they were all gone by the time I had my kid in the 70s. We were living in a different age, the Zeppelin age or whatever, the progressive rock age. And I was in the middle of all that. My dad loved Brubeck and, Miles Davis. My mom loved, Charlie Pride and country music and the Carpenters. And so I had a mix of things going. My older brother, 6 years older, he's listening to Zeppelin. My dad's listening to Brubeck and Miles Davis. My mom's listening to the Carpenters. So I'm hearing like everything. It's like a mix of all these different things. And I just love the cross-pollination of it and the possibilities of what you could do when you're more like you have like a Frank Zappa mindset, or you had a Sun Ra mindset. You're going to be more or even a Miles Davis go from modal jazz and bebop into fusion. So the idea you could be expansive, and you hadn't that there's still new frontiers.
And music is social. It's this fantastic medium that we all communicate through. Just as much as you said, I picked up big band and stuff from my dad and picked up things from my siblings and then rejected them because you listen to ABBA and Captain and Tennille. Those wasn't my style, but then I tripped up on new wave and kind of early, post punk, and that became kind of my thing.
Yeah, Joy Division was like a big revelation to me.
Yeah, and all that stuff was fantastic. But I also remember taking my dad to a Webern concert, a modern composer using a 12-tone scale. He hated it, but it was a new experience for him because he liked things balanced. He liked them a certain way, whether he was composing or playing. So, sharing both ways or multiple ways across generations, we were all influencing each other and kind of mixing it up, which is really cool.
Also, I love about the album and being a child of the 70s is like the 8-track and the album and, the tape decks, the reels, reel to reels is like, 78s and 45s. Like there's something about actually listening to an artist, right? Their complete idea, like
Yeah,
listening to that full record, like listening to a Beatle album. Like when you listen to Sergeant Pepper's, it's not a concept album, but every song fits on that record. It all kind of flows like it's telling some kind of story, but it's not. But the idea that
yeah,
you can have that, that it was a sound painting that, George Martin talked about, like you could do more than what you could do in live. Use the studio as an instrument. That
yep.
kind of gave birth to the Pink Floyds and the progressive bands that came
And add
after.
artwork and lyric sheets and
Yeah.
the experience of putting that album on a turntable, maybe having a couple friends over. Uh, albums are really an experience. I remember a friend bought me Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars,
Oh, yeah,
the album. And I was
favorite.
like, at that point, I was like, must have been like 83, 84, must have been 84. Tonight or Let's Dance had come out. I was like, I'm not really into that. You have to listen to this. Like, I sat down, listened to the whole album all the way through. It's like, oh my God. Instantly converted into buying everything Bowie for the
We
back
did.
catalog.
Well, Bowie was so great in that he would change. Ziggy
Yep.
Stardust is not Aladdin Sane. He's not the Thin White Duke, but he would change persona and become a totally different like character. They would flow through the record, music. He'd be kind of like a method actor as a musician, performer, theatrics. And I always thought that was really interesting. He's seeing like it's multidimensional. It's not just that you're a musician; it's how you present yourself on stage and how you present yourself as Ziggy, right? That you
Right.
believe he's Ziggy, you know.
And then hopefully I'm not spoiling for anybody. Kill Ziggy at
Yeah,
the
he
end of the
killed
tour
Ziggy and said, "Well,
and move on to something else.
I'm
Just
done with him." Like
amazing.
you could have run Ziggy for a decade,
Yeah.
and you didn't. And that in itself is like the record industry must have been like, "What are you doing? You're killing the goose that laid to go."
Yep. Yeah, no, it's just amazing. And I found, particularly with his old albums, I will try not to digress too much into my love for Bowie. But every album that came out was challenging outside of the kind of more commercial Capital
Yeah.
EMI stuff. And I loved that. It took me a while to kind of listen, approach the
Especially like the
album.
Eno stuff, like when he
Yeah.
got into the Eno Berlin period, and
Yeah.
he's getting deep into electronic and new wave, kind of before new wave. He's like doing new wave in Berlin with Eno before new wave was a thing.
Yeah.
He's like doing it like before Kraftwerk was even really kicking it out.
Yeah.
It's like maybe in the same time period, but really doing an approach that like anybody that's in new wave goes looks at those Eno records and says, "Wow, there's something there."
Yeah. And you can go, oh, I hear this song and this song, 5 years later, that someone used that riff, someone used that approach.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just the idea, the art of music, and like when we were talking about the commoditization of music. No, every musician you need to have like a way to earn money so you can be in the game,
Absolutely.
and living in this world of the streaming services, like we're so demonetized. It's more like the radio. It's just to get your name out there so people around the world can hear you. But like if you're gonna try to succeed, you have to tour and sell your T-shirt,
Yep.
or sell merch, so like a little badge or like a little pin or a poster or a USB stick or something, because that's where you have to monetize somehow, right?
Yeah, I think the hard part is you put in all this time and effort to writing, recording, studio time, mastering, not just time, but money too.
Yeah,
And if you've got a digital only release strategy and you're just going to hope and a prayer on all the streaming services, that's really what you're doing. You're spending all this money to create this fantastic child of yours, this album or these songs. But then if you're just doing a digital only strategy, you're likely not to recoup even a fraction of your
your
time and
mastering
energy on it.
cost alone. I mean, your mastering
Yeah.
cost, if you're going to professional mastering, you're using recording engineers, that's going to take a big bite, and you're probably not going to get it back.
Yeah, I think the hard part is like you start as a musician and then realize you have a business. It's like, oh,
Yeah,
I need to make some of that money back.
yeah,
I'm doing this because I love it, but I also want to connect with fans. I want to be someone that fans really enjoy listening to, and also people that fans will help support me. So it's that whole fan engagement, really meeting fans, having them enjoy your music, and then many of them will turn around and support you, whether it's touring or merch or buying physical albums. Those are the ways today where you can really make a difference
I
for
can
a
get like a
musician.
fan club. Like I grew up,
Yeah.
like being on the Prince fan club,
Hmm.
being in the REM fan club, being in the replacement fan club, like because like you want to get connected, you want to get knowing when they're going to show up, be like who's Skidoo following who's Skidoo around because they I dig Bob Mould and Grant Hard. Like I actually go follow them play. They play in
Hmm.
UMass, they'll play at Amherst. I'll go to both shows. I'll go to 3 shows.
Yeah.
Because you like the band was so cool, or you're so into it that you're not just seems like today, a lot of people, maybe that's the playlist mindset. You might know one song from a band, but you're not actually going to go see them. Where back in my days, I go see REM. I go see the
Right.
Who's Good. I go see the replacements. I actually follow them around,
Right.
and be
And
kind of a
and
diehard.
and a lot of the artists are still touring, because again, it's one of the few ways you can make money. But touring can look differently too. Like if I'm a singer songwriter and I can book my local cafe and maybe one other place in town, that's a start. You get your first 10 fans, get your first 20 fans, have them tell other people about you, and make sure you have something that they can buy to support you at
Yeah,
the
the
merch
merch table.
table, yeah,
Yeah,
and online, physical stuff. And maybe you'll get that lottery ticket. Maybe you'll break through on streaming and have a hit single. I've seen it happen. It's really cool when it happens, but it is a lottery ticket. So in the meantime, you really got to approach, once the album is getting finished, really approach your kind of business plan and figure out how to find and engage your fans.
well, Spinney Media. When I was looking at your write up, do you actually produce the vinyl, or do people have to have the vinyl before they come to you?
They bring us the finished vinyl, finished CDs, finished cassettes. We do have partners like disc makers out there in New Jersey, that I've worked with for over a decade, who do a lot of the production and then kind of send people our way. But if you got pressed locally, you're welcome to send us your albums however you got them.
Oh, so somebody, if they already know how to get the vinyl, know how to get the CD done or the cassette, they can come to you and you help with the rest, with this getting people signed up and subscriptions and different I guess
Yeah.
the
I like to
actual
say we help
distribution.
with the hard part. So like again, you've gone through this fantastic experience. You've got great material. You get your box of CDs or a box of records or box of cassettes. You open them up. You're super excited, and then now what?
Yeah,
Like,
how do you,
ha-
like if you don't have
like are you?
shows, like if you don't have
Yeah,
that merch table, how are you going to get them out in the world?
yeah. Are you really gonna even if you have a Bandcamp page, and I love Bandcamp, I do a lot of shopping there. Are you gonna get to the post office every other week to ship out that one order you got?
Mhm.
Are you gonna do it on time? Are you gonna do it when you're touring? So we try to really fill that gap. It's like just send us your stuff. We'll get it listed on our marketplace. We'll send listings to Amazon and eBay as well to kind of open up your market, to new fans. And then when you make a sale, we ship it out to your fan for you. And when we get paid, you receive 100% of the revenue because we make our money on subscriptions and a little bit of shipping and handling margin. So we've really built it to be easy, accessible, and something to help every musician.
And it's for like all genres, like you're handling all genres of music, or particular
Yeah,
genres are doing better than
all
others.
genres. We have some really cool classical and jazz. We have some fantastic pop. We're even working with the family of a French chanteuse, kind of jazz French vocals. So we've got all the genres under the sun, and really just trying to make it simple, easy to connect with fans, and take care of that part of your business so you don't have to. So many musicians have their day job, might tour, might want to work on another album. They really don't want to walk down to the post office every so often and send something on time, shipped correctly, with tracking numbers and support their fans. So we'll take that on. We'll make it easy, and provide kind of a residual income stream for the artists. Like
Now,
you're
does
sitting
the
there
artist
and
have to do like their SEO and their marketing? Is that part of what you're doing, or they have to do all that?
we'll create an artist page and an album page for them, and then we'll send them the link, and they can just stick it on their socials. So again, trying to make it super easy. Like if your fans want to buy it, just send them to our store. And it's very much like I used to work for CD Baby. I worked with them for 14 years. It's very much like the CD Baby marketplace used to work,
Mhm.
where it's really about sending people to your album page and getting them to buy it. And then if you have people buying on Bandcamp, we can do that fulfillment for you too. It's super easy to make us, your trusted third party for shipping out your Bandcamp
So
order.
you're really like the distributor actually sending the actual product out, if we're gonna call
Yep.
music a product. But
Yep.
you're
Sending it
here.
out and taking care of your fans. We provide the tracking number, discounted shipping to your fans. And then if something goes wrong, they don't get the order, they have questions, they reach out to us. So
Yeah,
just
so I
we
don't get
take care of that
involved
whole.
in the business because that's the problem is, musicians at the end of the day, we're artists, and if we try to have too many hats on the business side, we might not have that business sense, or we don't like that's not my day job to fulfill the order.
Yeah, and that's okay. We all need help, and there are plenty of
Mhm.
things I need help with. Not on the distribution side, but like if I need to go hire someone to be a handy person at the house, that's not my skill set. It's
Yeah,
really good to
I
hire
try
somebody
I
for
would
that.
try to cause more damage than the handy guy.
I definitely am. Demonstrated over time. So I think we're that person, that trusted partner you can hire, and then not have to worry about it. And it's super affordable. So I really want to make sure that Spinning Media is helping the musicians, really delivering value and helping them make money from their music.
Now, do you find that the vinyl versus CD is like which one is actually the hottest thing going on? Is the tape? Because I've been hearing a lot of people into tape are bringing tape back, and people are bringing back hi-fi decks with
Yep.
tapes on them, or finding Walkmans, or finding like all the cassette players that were around back in the day. So is that a trending thing that's more popular than the vinyl?
I've seen them all sell. Vinyl's certainly got a buzz. Vinyl's been on a tear sales wise. It's been up year over year for 18 years in the U.S. on just
Mhm.
total units sold, and all physical sales, including CDs, were up 5% last year over year in the U.S. So they're all selling. I think vinyl is great and sells well, particularly if you spend time on the art. You, as a musician,
And liner
um,
notes, and like
you
you put
read
a
the
whole
liner
section.
notes, you master it. There are certain genres I think do even better on vinyl, jazz, blues, these kind of wide-ranging sound palettes. I think sound great on vinyl. But I also see a lot of CDs selling. CDs are a great entry level. I have bands approach us like we've never done physical, but we're getting there. Where should we start? It's like start with CDs. CDs are awesome. It's an authentic replication of the sound you meant. It's not compressed
Yeah,
like
yeah,
all the
the
streaming
wave, yeah,
formats are.
wave
And you can,
files,
yeah, and
MP3s.
it's inexpensive to get started. So you can start with 100 CDs, and not break the bank, and see if your fans, kind of
Dig it.
embrace you.
Yeah, I think the thing that I thought, but it seemed like to me when the music went digital, that the relationship between the physical, there was something lost because I remember like being a kid picking up those Zeppelin records
Yeah,
and and seeing all the intricacies of the way the Zeppelin records, the way the Yes records were, Genesis, like any of the bands in the '70s. When you picked up the vinyl, you're like, wow, it was like the height of like what the imagination of what was being done.
yeah, it was an experience. Tearing off the cellophane, opening what often was a gatefold album, looking at all the art, pulling everything out. I mean, it was
Yeah.
just amazing.
There's all kinds of cool things, and from the Velvet Underground record with the sticker from, like, on it of the banana,
The banana, yeah,
yeah, to, like, the Who, Tommy, when you open it up, it was designed to have this, kind of effect when you open it and when you pull the things out. There was a lot of work being done
yeah,
in the presentation, like Quadrophenia. Like, when you pick up Quadrophenia, I mean, from the Who, it had these liner notes. It had a lot of like a picture book in it, and it would just there was a lot of work going on. And if you had an idea, like Pete had these rock opera ideas, and he wanted them to be multimedia, so there was like a lot of visual impact to the package.
Yep. Yeah, and you have people in the industry who are just fantastic at mastering to that format. And those people are still around and in high demand. But you had like Bob Ludwig, who mastered a lot of the, coming to the 70s and probably into the 80s, starting on vinyl eventually, I think, sneaking onto the CD. But there's just some people who just made it sound so immediate, so warm when you're spinning on your turntable. And then, I started in the industry, I'll, kind of reveal my age is probably not too far from yours. But I started in music retail in 1987 when we were pulling vinyl out of the bins for the first time to make room for CD long
For the
boxes.
CDs, long boxes.
Yeah. So to go from there
I go to
all the way to
Strawberries
streaming.
every Wednesday and pick up my long box.
Yeah, no, but that was the thing. Like, it was an event. I'd look at Tower Records at their board, what's coming out on new release Tuesday, back when it was Tuesday. And I'd be there as early as I could be on Tuesday to pick it up.
Well, I picked up Purple Rain on vinyl out of Strawberries. I picked Sign of the Times on vinyl, and I still got it. But yeah, it was like a big event, to go to that record store. And I like going to like Northampton, Mass. It was just like Main Street Records, and these like small record stores that would have like foreign records, like versions of Hendrix records that didn't come over here. They had like their foreign releases. They had the kind of limited edition stuff. Sometimes they'd have like Bob Dylan, like the actual real Basement tapes.
Yeah, because I used to go to record shows and pick up albums I hadn't seen before, but I love it.
Yeah, I had stuff like that. So I was actually listening to his classic Basement tapes to him and the band, at Big Pink, and there was just something about that the vinyl sound. People say, oh, you got to have, but I mean, I see people going back and getting like hi-fi stereos with tube amplifier systems, and getting real high-end cartridges. And and I'm a big purveyor of like analog transistor synths, and in the kind of wide kind of bandwidth they take. And there's something about listening to those on a vinyl record versus listening to them on a digital. Like it takes a lot of the bandwidth out. Like you can't hear everything that I hear.
Yeah, it definitely sounds different depending on the medium. And I would say, there are also albums that sound great on CD, particular ones that came out, say, in the 90s that were really mastered with an eye towards CD.
Right? Yeah.
Some of those presses are just fantastic. I do have an affinity for vinyl, though, as you can probably see.
There's something about listening to Brubeck or listening to like, Miles Davis on vinyl, or listening to my, 78s, the James Brown 78s.
Oh, yeah.
My pop had tons of Motown, and he had tons of, a lot of soul records, and a lot of James Brown records, a lot of funk records. And it's just something in his collection. My dad passed away, but it's like, I just love this having that experience of listening to that full vinyl record, sitting on the couch. There's something about having your attention not divided by your cell phone.
I think giving yourself that space to actually listen and live in that universe for a little bit. I mean, the artist spent a ton of time, energy, money, everything to create this fantastic music. And then I get to sit and live in it for, 46 minutes or whatever the length of, both sides are. I think it's just fantastic, and it just sounds different. I mean, like my wife and I will pretty regularly put on a record, grab a couple drinks, sit, next to each other on the couch, and just enjoy the time.
Yeah, well, it's to me, it's just an experience. I remember like with my buddies listening to Zepp or listening to the Beatles in the 70s. And we'd be all in the basement, and somebody's had a real good hi-fi. We're listening to Sgt. Pepper's or Abbey Road or, Led Zeppelin. We're listening to like, Into the Outdoor, or listening to any of those records. And, it's just, there's some experience about just having that, all my friends, we're all like into the Beatles or into Pink Floyd or into that, and actually fans of the music. and really appreciating and actually talking about it. And I had a lot of friends who were musicians, so we're like listening to Entwistle, we're listening to John Bonham, we're actually talking about what they're doing. After we'd listen,
Yeah.
we'd actually it's like, and then some of us would try to recreate things, and say, hey, can I actually get that? Can I play the Hammond B3 like Greg Allman? Could I actually do it? Could I actually hit that note? Like any of these great people they were listening to, like we were being inspired to
That's
actually
awesome.
go and become musicians.
I think the bar was a little higher, a little lower in my high school. People learned that I had a DX7 in my room. They're like, "Oh, you have a synthesizer? You want to join our band?" Like, you haven't heard anything. Yeah, but you're cool. You'll be fine.
Well, I think that's the kind of punk aesthetic is like, hey, I can go get it. Like the post punk, like the new wave aesthetic. Like you see somebody, Duran Duran, you go
Yep.
see Seagulls and say, hey, can I get a DX7? Could I go find like some kind of Moog and actually go out and try to be like, Joy Division or be like New Order?
Yep. Yeah,
and
no,
try
it's
to do it.
definitely a lot of people jumping in, and maybe that's even kind of how things go today. The barriers to getting your music out there. Now that we've kind of moved away from the major label system, at least as the only game in town, as it was in the 60s and 70s, and going into the 80s. Really in the 90s and beyond, independent music and releasing yourself became a thing. So there's lots of opportunity to put what you like and what you love out there. And I
Yeah.
love that that's the case.
Well, I
And then
think
I
there's
think,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I was going to say, and then I think if you want to, find more fans, streaming's good marketing. And if you want to make some money at what you're doing, I think you've got to come up with a strategy, from the release plan, from recording to the release plan, to touring, to merch, to physical albums. You just that's part of the gig, if you want to keep making music and at least make some money back from it.
Yeah, because a lot of times the bands might, focus on like a T-shirt or a
Mhm.
sweatshirt or a hoodie, but now it's possible to actually not just focus on the non-music merch you have, but actually get to, yeah, we could actually get our album on vinyl or CD or tape or
Yeah, because fans love it. I've worked on campaigns in the past where a band would come in and say, "Yeah, we've got a lot of followers." I had worked with a band that was really popular on YouTube, but hadn't put out an album before. They decided to put out an album on a lark. They were going to press 5,000 copies, and they promised to sign every single one. They ended up selling 42,000 copies,
wow,
and over months signing every single one. And I was there when members of the band called their parents and said, "We're going to do this full time now."
yeah, well, that's cool because
Um,
like 'cause that's like a micro level thing. If you don't shoot for like I want to sell 1,000,000 copies, right? But if you actually do something where it's like possible to actually exist as a band at 42,000 copies,
yeah,
where like in the old world you would have failed, right?
yep,
Where in
yep.
this new
That would
world,
have been like, "Oh, you're not even going to chart."
you're not
Uh,
even going to get it. But now, if you run that at this level where you're not being grandiose and buying too much equipment in anticipation that you're going to sell 1,000,000 when you only sell 42, like if you have to have a kind of right scale for what you're doing and
yeah,
understanding of the kind of basic economics is like what's the possibility? What's a legitimate possibility of the range of what we could get,
yeah, and I
versus
also think like we all approach it, for musicians. And I, played in grade school, and I was a mobile DJ and did some virtual DJing during the pandemic. So I've always kind of had that side, that creative side to what I do. Um, but I flip it around. Like we're all of us as musicians are music fans too. So it's easy for me to put myself in a fan's shoes and say, I really love this music. I want to figure out how to connect more, how to share
yeah,
with my friends. It's so if you're out there, you're thinking about the first time you're ever going to press physical, and maybe it's going to be CDs. Press 100
yeah,
and
yeah,
sign them. Your fans will love a signed CD, and then price it appropriately. You'll make back what you spend on the CD if you sell all 100 of those. Honestly, you'll make back what you spend on the CDs if you sell 25 or 50 of those. And it'll certainly make more money than you would streaming.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
again, from the fan perspective, it's this huge thank you of like, oh man, I got a little piece of you. I got this signed. I got a chance to meet
well,
you.
it's a
Or I talked to you
connection.
an email.
Well, I think the reason why there's kind of these one-hit wonders on the playlist
Yep.
in the digital space, and it's like background music, and it's not really something that you get keyed in. I think if the people, like, it's kind of like when I was a fan, like REM, like the REM fans, where we were kind of crazy, like they got super big because we were like, wow, this is something I never heard before, right? And
Yep.
we would go see them, and we would go buy the records, and sometimes we buy maybe 2 records because we wanted to see them make it. So I think there's a connection with the fans that when you're not don't have a physical release, the people can't connect like that, you know?
Yeah. And REM is a great example. I mean, those early IRS albums, like trying to hear Michael Stipe's vocals on them, like,
Yeah,
it was underground approaching
it's like a mystery.
yeah.
That appealed to me, like listening to Murmur and Reckoning, and when he went to Warner's and then I could actually hear him, I still liked him, but it was like I liked the IRS records.
Yep.
And there was something that was mysterious about him that I could kind of like have my own impression of what I think it is. And when it became more clear, it's not that I didn't like his direction. He kind of evolved, like the Beatles. They started to
Yeah.
evolve and started doing other things. They started doing more than what they did IRS. But
Yeah,
I
and
did,
they actually started swapping instruments, playing other instruments just to keep it fresh, different,
yeah, and that's
keep
cool. I mean,
approaching it
bands
new.
evolve. Either you dig it or you don't. And so, and I still bought everything they did. I just
Yeah,
had a preference. I like the early stuff. I do like some of the later albums. I started to like, oh yeah, I like where they finally hit, and then they stopped.
yeah, and I think they stopped kind of at at a time that they chose, and all the members are still doing stuff. Peter Buck
Yeah,
lives here in Portland, Oregon, and he still comes out with a group called Minus Five. He supports a lot of local artists,
that's
and
cool.
will pop in and just like appear on stage and play along with a bunch of other kind of local luminaries.
I didn't know that. I'm gonna check
Yeah,
that. I
yeah,
like
and
listening.
that's the life, right? So if you get a fan who really wants to hear you and is engaged, they'll follow you, to the ends of the earth, and also really appreciate that connection through merch, through physical, so a little bit of contact and attention on socials, whatever that looks like. So I don't want to turn every interaction into like a transaction. I think it's
Yeah, yeah,
important to understand that music is beautiful, and fans who embrace that music, it's community.
yeah.
So
It's
just
a whole
just
scene.
acknowledge your community. I think it's just
Yeah,
awesome.
it's a scene. It's like CBGB scene. That was a scene. You had the Ramones. You had Television. You had Patti Smith. You had it's just that kind of scene. Talking Heads is like it's that diversity of that kind of scene. Um,
Yep.
and I think people who miss out on that kind of underground, it's like Sub Pop, like the grunge scene,
Hmm.
the Sub Pop label. They had, I mean, before Nirvana broke, I was listening to Sub Pop because I like punk. And
Yep.
and I said, "Whoa, this is new punk. This is a new scene." And I was in Who's to Do and Replacements, and then I found like, oh, here's another scene. And so I just like, and then when they blew up, and then suddenly, oh, all these grunge bands are breaking through, STP and Pearl Jam and all the rest of them. But it's like I just like that scene because I like that. I like the punk aesthetic. I like the fact that you get kind of Joe Strummer, like you can get out there and you're passionate and you just do it because it's like
Yep.
you feel it. You're not trying to be like Yes or Genesis, the alter musician. Is like, yeah, and I love that band too, but I like the idea that it could kind of democratization of passion. That if you're
Yeah.
passionate, you could come out there and do it.
And there's a shorthand between fans. I don't know how many people I've met and then gotten great friendships out of sharing our favorite bands, trading a mixtape. Um, because again, it's community. My closest friends, we all grew up in the music scenes together. We found each other through music in a lot of cases. I have a friend who in the LA area grew up on the Mystic Knights of the Oingo Boingo before it was Oingo Boingo. you know, easy to connect with him. And another friend who just did new wave, hardcore new wave. She went to 200 concerts before she turned 18. So like, those are the folks that are my closest friends today.
Well, yeah, I think it's cool to be passionate about it, and I wonder sometimes people with so many distractions today, like the video game industry, kind of eats into like I think the dollar that kids would have spent on music. It seems like the people buy these $80, $90 games, and
Yeah.
that seems to be like the money that would have been spent back in my day buying the CD. You know,
Yeah, I think that's true to some extent. I think also we've just gotten used to music being less expensive. Oh, I can
being
get
cheaper,
everything for,
15
under
bucks, 15 bucks a month.
$13 a month on Spotify, or you know, that over time has devalued music. My wife, who's also now my closest friend, she grew up in the Boston scene. She knew all these folks who were busking people, or probably walked and saw someone like Tracy Chapman busking in,
Oh yeah.
Boston Square back in the day.
Hmm.
Um, so there are all these connections over time, and I think the way we spend money today is we, go and get a subscription and stop. If we're thinking of music as something that just is for listening in the car, listening on our phone, listening casually too.
Yeah, yeah. They're not
Um,
to not like a hardcore fan of like a Dylan fan is gonna like buy everything.
yeah,
Like a hardcore Dylan fan, they're not just gonna listen to a greatest hits album. That's it. They're gonna go buy the archive albums. They're gonna
yep,
go see him on tour. They're gonna go to every show to go look for all the old shows and try to
yeah,
listen to them. Where like the fans today do they actually have? Maybe the people are buying the vinyl, people are buying the cassettes, like a new generation of people that are starting to appreciate music. Like to me, it's like an album is really like the Great American Novel. You don't
yeah.
really know a band by their single. You know them by their B sides and their deeper tracks. And a lot of fans today, they don't know the deeper tracks of any of the artists they listen to. So as
Yeah,
a
and I
fan,
think
you're not really like true hardcore fans, of the brand of the band.
yeah, I think there's a kind of a shared history as to why, and there's a change over the last several years that gives me a lot of hope. So I think the change was coming into particularly 2012 with iTunes and Apple Music, and 2016 the streaming services kind of ascending. There was this promise to musicians and fans alike. To musicians, it was, you know what, you can do this for cheap. Just do it digitally. You don't have to spend a lot of money, and you'll find tons of fans, and you'll make lots of money. And for fans, it was like we just came up with the most convenient format ever. It can go everywhere with you, and it sounds good. It didn't, but it sounds good. So I think that was the promise. I think that promise rings hollow.
Yeah.
We saw a lot of people during the height of the COVID pandemic, kind of restoring their lives. I really want to live in a digital only world. And a lot of the trends in physical albums sales increasing really trace themselves to that time a little bit before, when music fans and people who would become music fans were starting to think like, is this what I want to do? I want to just listen to music passively. I want to be on my phone all the time. So what I'm seeing a lot in studies and kind of sales reporting from the industry now is not only are physical music sales growing, but it's growing in younger generations faster. Younger
Yeah.
generations are in digital exhaustion. I don't want to have, rely on the streaming platform that takes down the music I love. I don't want to just always be on my phone. I want to connect with community and friends, and physical albums are the way to do it. Certainly one of the best ways, as well as going to see a band together.
Yeah.
And those things feel good, create community, connect you with the artist, and then you're supporting the musicians too.
Also, I think I found that my daughter, like, she likes a lot of bands that are like, underground bands or bands that
Hmm.
aren't really in the top. And a lot of her 25 somethings around her are all into either bands that are not in the top 20, top 30. They're like the bottom 200, right? or they're listening to stuff from another era.
Yep.
Like going back and listening to, like, finding the Velvet Underground, finding Big Star, finding, like Sun Ra, going in and going and looking for the vinyls in small record stores and actually picking it up, finding old hi-fi systems, getting into finding out like how these hi-fis work, how these vinyl systems work, and trying to bring them back, and getting into like the whole scene of like appreciating the music. And maybe it's kind of like, oh, that's from the 70s and it's a different era, and there's some appeal to going retro back to an era where it's not the phone technology, not the digital, the physical feel of a vinyl record, of an 8-track player, of a cassette player, of a hi-fi system, and how that was set up, and how, in the 70s we're all like, oh, I got to build a better hi-fi system than Johnny down the street. I got to build it like all the guys I knew, they were all trying to build like better hi-fis than anybody else.
Like, ooh, is that a Nakatomi deck?
Yeah, he's got the better amps, he's got the better turntable, he's got the better everything,
Yeah, there's definitely that scene, and I think honestly, I see a lot of people even using relatively inexpensive cross-lead turntables, and if you plug into speaker system outside of the speaker that comes with it, it's not bad. It's a good place to start. It's certainly better than streaming.
The easy ones. Like my daughter went and got something from like a Newberry Comics. She's got some small little player, and started getting like her gorilla. She's into the gorillas, so she had all that stuff on digital, and then she went and got it all on vinyl. And then she was like really entranced with the vinyl package. That's like a cartoon band done by the comic book artist.
Yeah.
The guy. So there's like a lot of artwork in the vinyls. And I think they even had like a comic book in one of them, like a limited.
Yeah, no, they have great packaging.
Yeah, so they were like, she was like, "Wow, this is whole different thing if I get it like this." I said, "Yeah, get into that." But she's an artist herself. She's a graphic sequential artist. But yeah, that appealed to her because she said, "Well, this CDs are cool, but she liked the space of the vinyl."
Yeah.
As a graphic artist, because there's like more land, there's more room, more real estate for an artist to actually kick off an idea.
Yeah, I'm just looking directly in front of me, and I've got a book of 1,000 record covers. There's a reason that book exists, because it's art. It's an amazing medium. The music inside and the artwork all coming together to really express what the musicians intended or the band intended.
It was funny because I actually put together a record, and I worked with this artist from Greece, Chernobyl. He's from Germany, but he was working in Greece, and he did this really kind of MCR type of kind of black and white psychedelic cover, and it was a cool experience because he listened to my whole record, and then he was inspired to create the art, and I let him kind of go. I was like, I had some ideas, but I said, you're an artist and I'm an artist, so I want you to pick up the vibe of this record and tell me how you see it, and just show me what your designs. And like, he had some amazing designs. I just went with what it fit what his interpretation was, like, dead on. And it's cool to have that kind of collaboration when you're working. It opens things up. It's like if you work with a video director in your band, like that opens you up to that world. You work with a graphic artist, that opens up to your photographers. It just opens up this whole community. Like, hey, it's a wider scene.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. It's brave, and at the same time, I think it's great because again, it's your baby, and hopefully you collaborate and something comes out that's amazing. It sounds like in this case that did happen. I've seen a local band here, Die Robot, released I think it was 4 songs, stems for 4 songs, and had their fans remix it and then press the CD from the remixed stems.
Oh, that's a cool idea. Yeah, it's a
cool idea. It was just like, that's an amazing way to engage your fans and bring them into your music, and then to press it on CD and make something really collectible out of it was so cool.
That's a cool idea, because I was thinking about like interactively hooking up one of my Euro racks and have an interactive session and have the fans kind of kick off the triggers to the Euro rack and make that electronic music in real time with fan input.
Oh, that sounds really cool. I love the editing side of music more than I do playing. I'm not a very good player. So that even sounds more attractive on that end to me.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool things you can do today, because the technology, we can take advantage. You could create like this kind of, I've always talked about the sound painting aspect of music, which Hendrix talked about and the Beatles talked about.
Mm-hmm.
But like you kind of just throw paint at the canvas, or in the moment, it's infusion jazz and modal jazz is that idea. Like in the moment, if you're a master artist, if you're having intentions, right, you can create something that's really beautiful, and there's like that happy accident that can happen. And in the 70s, a lot of bands would say, hey, that wasn't intentional. That was actually I was not gonna use that. But then it's like, oh, I couldn't get back to it. And I said, well, you know what? That's actually gonna get used. And so
Yep.
it's like sometimes that and I think some of the computers today, it's kind of it's a good thing, it's a bad thing.
Hmm.
Because like if you're using a digital audio workstation, you can kind of destroy your work because you could go try to make it too clean
Kind of
or
over process.
over processed, over
Mm-hmm.
timing. Like sometimes the micro timing errors make something beautiful. But if you let the computer tell you like, oh, that's not in time, and then you keep on messing with it, you might wreck something that was really good
Yeah. Think of
because you let
Frank
the computer
Sinatra
kind of
singing.
overcorrect.
Yeah, think of Frank Sinatra singing, right? He created a completely different rhythm with the way he approached the vocals on songs.
Yeah.
If it stuck to like, oh, this isn't 4/4 time, I'm just gonna hit every note right, it would have sounded awful.
Yeah, that's the problem. The problem is like it's telling you what's right, and then if you're a musician and you believe it, you get influenced by the machine
Yeah.
instead of you controlling the machine. And that's what I worry about because I'm not a synthesist, in the synthesis, like people when the Moogs first came out, the purest musicians said the Moogs weren't real instruments. So I understand when something new comes along, people say it's not good. So I could use AI as a tool in my workflow to
Mm-hmm.
trigger something. And I use it as a tool, but I'm not going to have it write the whole song. I might have it
Right.
trigger something or give me an atmosphere. It's like, hey, give me a compressor that would sound like what Nick's voice is being compressed on Rumors, and it might be able to find that compressor and give it to me. Well,
Right.
that's useful because I don't have the money to go get that compressor. So if I get a digital version of that compressor and it works for me, that's fine. But to have the thing write the hook, write the intro and the outro is like, no, I don't want it doing that.
Yeah,
But
no, I'm totally with you. I use AI very selectively in business, and it's usually to do something routine so that I can use my brain, my abilities to do something else and not do the more routine or mundane work. It's also sometimes a really good research assistant, like what you've described. I definitely am suspicious and cautious about using AI to generate original content that isn't probably original. It's got to
yeah,
learn from something.
it's
So,
pulling from the learning library,
yeah,
and
there's a lot of copyright and kind of royalty issues there that got to be worked out. And I prefer, like you said, a bunch of musicians coming together or artists coming together and creating something new. Going back to Eno's deck of cards to just randomly
yeah,
throw notes
or
down.
the chalkboard and saying, hey, you do this chord and this chord and this chord and these notes, and they're not actually correct from a music theory point of view. He would
Yeah,
just throw it out there.
it's like,
And
oh, but what's this and this? That sounds
what
good.
if you
Let's
do
go dig.
this? What if you do that? What if you overload this and you use this as it wasn't intended to be used this way? Well, do it. It's like, why not?
Yeah, no, I think that's where creation comes from, and you have all these different genres and different sounds. For me, uh, I love a good pop hook, and I'll go back to Motown songs,
Oh yeah,
Stack,
Motown
a bunch
drumming.
of other great labels that just yeah, there's some fantastic ones, but I appreciate it with um, you know some intention, some songwriting, some lyrics, something
Yeah,
uh, to it. So I think there's a place for every genre, and I'm just so interested when genres mix. I used to work with a band in a prior position called Delhi to Dublin. It was dance music influenced by Indian music and
oh,
Irish
that's
music.
cool.
And it was just really cool. Like
Hybrid.
I've
Yeah,
never heard that mixed together. It's interesting. Just caught my ear. So
it's cool.
plenty of things still to be done.
Well, that's the thing is like when it's like people try to stay in a canon. Like you get a blues guy say, "Well, I'm going to just do Texas blues. I'm going to do Delta blues," and that's the only thing, and that's fine if that's your genre that you want to stay in there. But the whole idea of Hendrix was he was listening to that, and he brought Coltrane phrasing. He brought like this kind of psychedelia that never been thought of, right? And he brought the feedback, which was like normally edited out
Right.
or not allowed. And so he took something that was a canon and then kind of made cosmic blues. This Hendrixian thing today that not anybody really can hit. Stevie Ray Vaughan kind of hit it, but he hit it from a Texas point of view. And so his version of Voodoo Child is different than Hendrix's. Hendrix's is cosmic. His is more like a bluesman's approach to it, which is they both live in the same space, but they're different.
Well, they're both expressive of the people playing it and reimagining it, which is what's important. Like, that as creators, this is what we do. And, as we connect with people who love what we do, we either collaborate or they're fans or they become friends, all these things. So music is community. You get a chance to be individual and individualistic. And at the same time, you get to find people who kind of are on the same plane as you.
Well, I think it's a great opportunity to kind of socialization. And then, what I want to just implant to people is like respect for musicians kind of begins with understanding like music should not be free from creative people who put a lot of work into it.
Yes.
And I think we've gone through this kind of Napster age, triggered it that and it could have been that maybe the record companies were charging too much. Maybe. I don't know. But so then it went other pendulum to it. It's like now it's getting too little. The respect for a musician, like people respect them, but they have this idea that every musician's going to live in Beverly Hills. It's like, no, they don't. Like most musicians don't make any money.
Yep.
And so like the idea in our craft is like, we're very passionate about our craft, but you don't feel the need to compensate me for you'll pay somebody on playing a video game. You'll give them a tip for commenting on a game, but you won't be a patron to a band. And so this idea of being able to create like a vinyl or a CD or like for my art, so you can physically have it. You can be the patron for the art that moves you. A song, to me, it gets in your head and you interpret it. It becomes a part of your life. It sounds soundtrack of your life. That's an important part of your life. You're probably going to remember the songs that you love. They're like replaying in your brain.
Yep.
Shouldn't you compensate the artist that gave you that?
Absolutely. I think, the Napster 2000s, when Napster was out and a lot of illegal file sharing, that's the only time that I left the music business. I worked in semiconductors for 6.5 years because I was freaked out on the career side, but also for every musician out there. It's like, this is bad. And I think the digital substitutes came along, kind of convenience factor was high, but even the money that someone received from downloads back in the day of downloads wasn't the same as selling a CD or a vinyl. So we kind of have this weird, like, well, the industry is moving this way. Major labels, major indies, we all got to go play that game. I would suggest to any independent artist and label, like, don't play that game.
Yeah.
Take the cue from your fans. Get them engaged. Tell them how to support you. And you know what? Most of the time they will. That can be a CD, that can be a T-shirt, that can be a cassette tape, that can be a single. I had someone approach us with over 100 copies of their 7-inch that they still needed to sell through. Like, yeah, we can totally help you with that.
Oh, wow. Do you do 45s? Do you do 78s?
Yeah, I love 45s.
Or 78's not a back? Is it? Because I don't know if 78s.
I do 78s. I haven't had anybody approach me about pressing or distributing on 78s. I have way too many 78s. I did a lot of estate buying looking specifically for old 78s. I do have some Bessie Smith original 78s. They're just fantastic.
It's great James Brown 78s. I mean,
there's some really cool stuff out there. There's a label called, I want to say, Siegel out of Boston. I got a bunch of their stuff, these red 78s from back in the day. So I personally love them. They're very heavy.
Yeah, they are.
But I haven't had anyone press on 78 yet, but I'm sure that's coming.
Well, sometimes like the record players today, they don't have the speed on them. They don't have it. you have to go find an older one and get them like repaired or retrofitted one that from the 70s actually has it. But
Yep, and you gotta change out your needle because there's a
yeah,
78 needle versus
it's a lot of work. A lot of work. Yeah, but
Or
I
just
have
find another record player, which is what I did.
yeah, yeah, I got some chess records that my dad gave me, so I got them. So
Oh, that's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, it's cool. It brings you back into that whole day. It's a whole different period and stuff from that period.
I even have some 78s and kind of early version 45s that my dad played on.
Wow.
Where he went into a recording studio or someone recorded him as a kid and went to the place where they pressed records and pressed a record.
Oh, pressed
I
it.
even have
Oh,
some of
that's
that
awesome.
stuff.
So that's very rare. Yeah, those are
Yeah.
cool. Those like those test pressings and stuff. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. And it was just a novelty too at that point. People would have a record press because they were relatively cheap to do, kind of the novelty thing.
That's awesome. Well, I just think I think there's a whole generation that's kind of enamored with the kind of the atmosphere and intrigue of a vinyl, and and the same thing go with the cassette. People going, it's like that's like an 890s thing. You know, but where I remember in the 80s, I had my Walkman when I was going to college.
All the time because that Walkman. And now my kiddo just refurbished Discman, so he's taking all his CDs with him wherever he goes. And again, eschewing the smartphone for a flip phone. Just that's what I'm seeing in the youngest generations now. They're tired.
They want to get plugged out. They wanted how the old thing is like, oh, drop out. It's like they want to deconnect, disconnect, because it's overwhelming. It's like an overload. And it seems like the older tech is like, then I'm going to actually take the time. It's like reading a book.
Yeah.
Like if you go read Moby Dick, most people don't have the attention span to stay in Moby Dick. If they're told they have to do it, then they'll do it, but they're not going to go do it willingly. It's like watching a 1970s movie and the pacing. Kids today is like, I can't deal with the pacing of this movie. It's too slow. I can't get it. Right.
And I think some of that is digital training. The commoditization of content and having everything like easy swipe on your phone. I'm seeing people unplug, having longer attention spans, being able to do some of those things. I think analog is the new punk. Go analog.
Yeah, well, that's what I love with my Moogs. I mean, I got my CV connected Moogs, transistor Moogs, and it's like, there's digital sense and there's sampled sense, but there's something about this thing warms up and it behaves different the longer it stays on, and it has like a life to it of its own. It kind of decides what the sound's going to be. I mold it, but it has like its own mind.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it's a machine that's closer to like a guitar, and it doesn't just give me the same thing every time. It gives me something different, which is like very inspiring.
Yeah.
I can get something different out of it all the time, and then that actually helps me write songs. And that's where the old tech is kind of magical in that, and what you hear on a vinyl is like you hear things you won't hear on the compressed, MP3.
Yeah, the depth is so much different because it has the range, as do CDs, and compressed audio for MP3s just doesn't.
Yeah,
so you're missing out if that's the only way you're listening.
Yeah, you miss a lot. Like you go listen to like any of the classic record. Like I was listening to Tommy on vinyl versus like Tommy on my phone, and there's all this stuff I hear on the vinyl I don't hear. And I was like, wow. He's like, I don't really want to listen to it on the phone anymore.
Yeah, might be convenient when I'm driving and I'm kind of tuning out. I get it, but yeah, it's not a good listening experience.
Yeah, because you're not really getting what the artist intended, and this is where I think the fans can really benefit from something like Spinney Media and the artist can, in that when you are able to get an artist complete vision. Like if for convenience sake, it's fine. You go and jog and you're at the gym, you're cooking dinner. I understand it, but like you're missing out on the full vision. Like when you go to a movie theater to see the movie versus sitting on your couch, you decided that you want to see that Star Wars movie in the theater. There's a reason why you decided you wanted to see it in the theater.
Absolutely. I mean, I used to, and I haven't done this for a while. I think I've gotten on my mopiest period, but I used to sit down and listen to Pink Floyd's The Wall once a year, analog, either vinyl or CD, but with headphones, and it is an experience. And you just can't get there without one setting aside time to actually listen to the full album. and 2, doing it in an analog format that can help support it.
Yeah, you're getting that complete thought. Like, 'cause that is meant to be heard like a movie. You're meant to actually listen to it. It's a rock opera, you're supposed to listen to it all the way through. And whether you have the patience or the time, but I think people are starting to make the times. Like, you can make the times. Like, this other stuff is taking your time, like your TikTok. You don't have to sit there for 5 hours on your TikTok. You could actually take that 5 hours and do something else.
And I think a lot of that feels like empty calories. It's fast food, digital fast food, versus sitting down and having a good meal, which is listening to vinyl, CDs, cassettes, particularly with friends and family. And, as a musician, putting stuff out there in those formats. So your music vision can actually be realized. People can actually hear what you meant.
Yeah, and I bet the fans that listen to you on your vinyl are gonna be passionate. They're gonna show up at your show. They're gonna buy your T-shirt. They're gonna, they be there. Like anytime you show up, they're gonna show up. So that's what you want as a musician. You want to be able to build that kind of community, build that kind of hype, and people want to, see you come back with your next project. So you're now a one-hit wonder.
And they're bringing their friends, and they're passionate about you. So it helps everybody, and I think it's just a fantastic way to experience music and experience the musician's original vision.
That's cool. So we have your URL, spinneymedia.com. That is fully clickable on the podcast description. We were just live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. I want to thank you for being on the show today. We do encourage people to click that link. Artists and musicians that have seen the show really engage and check out like what you may be missing. If you're scared of doing a physical release, realize you can do it at a micro level. Like, maybe go like 10,000 copies. You do 100 copies. You can do something.
Yeah,
you can
start with 10. Like, you really can start as small as you need to, and we are here to help you.
Well, thank you again for being out here to help.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was great. I love talking to you. And we do have people come back. If you ever have new programs or new services that you think demand another take, another talk, let us know, and we have people come back.
Sounds great.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.